Thank you very much, Comrade Namani Dixon Masemula, Program Director, Advocate Morota, esteemed academia, scholars, and students, youth, and all faculties of great importance to this great university. It is a great pleasure and privilege for me to be here tonight. And I just want to greet you all and the leadership of Black Forum South Africa for inviting the African National Congress to be with you here today. As we gather here, we dip our revolutionary banners on the passing away of a giant of our revolution and struggle, human rights activist, Dr. Isop Pahat, who was laid to rest today. May his soul rest in eternal peace. Today, it is important to be here at UNISA. And I think the first task of Black Forum, before you think about AfriForum, is to defend the Vice Chancellor of this university. That's how you are going to be tested. Before you think about AfriForum, start by defending the Vice Chancellor. Then you will know about your presence. I'm saying so because women who are appointed in these institutions, starting with UCT, a woman was harassed there by racial groups who think that that university belonged to them, and that an African woman cannot lead an important university like University of Cape Town. She was harassed and nobody came to her defense. Now they are doing it here in this university. I've never seen black people and women standing up and just being mad in the true sense of the word, or the deepest meaning of the word, madness, and defending this woman. Never seen it. I've seen you with graduations, blue, purple here. I've never seen anyone standing for this woman in this university. Now I'm coming to Black Forum. It's standing for blackness and black excellence, I suppose, and we don't talk about it. Let's talk about it. In my view, I think it is discrimination. In my view, I believe that it's not about incompetence. It is fundamentally about the fact that elements of chauvinism and all of that think that a big university like this cannot be led by a woman. That's the starting point. Because if this university was led by a man, even if he was black and African, he will not be harassed like this woman have been harassed. I think we must stand up for the truth, and at the same time, we must never be threatened, and we must stand up and protest and make our voices to be heard. And I think that is important. That is my first point in terms of my greetings, Black Forum. And then the second point is that South Africa has produced post-1994 the black middle strata in great numbers. And there are people who say that we have achieved what we have achieved on our own. It's got nothing to do with struggle and what you can call a revolution in this country. we have become the people that we are as young people, because on our own, we just became successful. It has got nothing to do with the process of struggle. Now, the ANC government consciously created the black middle strata, not class, because a class is something that is defined against the means of production. And nothing that says in terms of the strata, it has got anything to benefit from the means of production. It's the evolution in the social stratification of society of a creation by the democratic revolution deliberately of a special strata in terms of the development of our own society to create this particular strata for the benefit of the revolution. It happened to be black and African. And that is what is important. So it is not something that happened on its own. It is because there was a conscious effort on the part of the ANC. If you like, which is not what we're talking about, you will say we're creating a black Broederbond. And it was not a black Broederbond we're creating, it is a black middle straight. The Broederbond in this country, in terms of its evolution and the success stories you've got of state-owned companies which became successful, it is because of the fact that there was a conscious effort on the part of the Afrikaners when they came into power to create the Broederbond, which plotted everything in this country. That's why people who created and worked a Spoornet, which was called Spoorweg, were not even standard 3 people. And then the highest standard you can pass as black person was JC, under Bantu education. Makgowa a standard 3 ana rana di company. Tse re di bitsang ka gore ke Spoorweg, which is trains. And then which in the process of amalgamation, we then in the unbundlement created Boprasa today, Botransnet and all of that. That thing was one. The ANC then unbundled that thing and said the other front company will deal with enterprise interest of the state, and the other one will deal with not enterprise interest but public interest in terms of expansion of public transport for those who don't have, which is the masses of our people, the poorest of the poor. And we called that the intervention of the state, which was a conscious decision of the ANC to do that. So these people, then they left, and then they ran away because we brought laws, we started to ask for qualifications and all of that. And then they disappeared in the system. So that is why the successful story of this company here in South Africa today, which went under liquidation, was created under South African Airways, was run by a person who doesn't have a matric. Is a direct descendant of that old system of apartheid, which was the policy of the Broederbond, to deliberately affirm their own. When the ANC came into power, then created this black middle straight. And then most of our people went to school, passed, and all of that. And that's where they are today, to assume bigger responsibilities. But what do our people do when they come into strategic positions? Instead of transforming the system transformed them. So that is why you are unable to defend one of your own in this university, who did not come here by accident, but those who've got many powers and very powerful, they want a gun. But you as black and African people, you're fighting a black on black violence. Because any one of you who are sent to a top position, you work within the system to bring them down. And you are not You are not in a militant position to stand up even when an injustice is visited upon them. Because as a black person, I'm jealous. You know, this revolution wouldn't have reached this stage. We wouldn't be talking about if ever it was characterized by petty jealousies. Blacks are defined by petty jealousies. And the country is going in your hands when you think you are in charge. You are not in charge for next. You are not. You are not in charge. You've got degrees, you are educated, you've got all the other things. We have created this black middle street that think of itself. Makhuaka standard 3, they never thought of themselves. They understood Kikenika standard 3 ling la standard 1. Fanny Kerk, ki now global responsible mo iba foromani mo spurnete mo o sheba ori maburu le di components tsa di train. Fanny Kerke ki manager ya mo. And then they come and tell you that they've got experience to have run this country. Where will you get experience if you are not affirmed by your own? And they tell you today that you don't have experience. And they tell you that is racialism. They tell you that affirmative action is backwardness. And they tell that employment equity is not something that you've got to entertain. South Africa must be what it is because blacks think they have arrived. And then they are quite content for what they are, just a cream on top. And then that is it, and therefore they are in charge. And then we drop, titles, professors and all of that, but what do we do about our titles to advance the cause of national democratic revolution? Here is a vice-chancellor is being shot down in front of us. We do nothing about it because we will not do anything up until it is me who ascend to that particular position. So, Black Forum, you've got an important task. AfriForum is building a university here in Pretoria, just across the mountains here. They build a university and they get that money from Afrikaners. And then they've got a township they called Orania. They do everything there. So why do they build their own university when there is UNISA? Why? Che Guevara says young people must always be obsessed of thinking of why things are the way they are. So they built an Afrikaner university, they teach themselves, they say they need to preserve their own culture. And therefore, they need their own university. With their own money, they build it. And then we've got universities in and around us. That's what they do. And if ever there is a problem, and black people go to court to protest because a white man or an Afrikaner have done the following things and so on, you are being chastised, that you are not civilized people and all of that. And this is what we talk about in terms of the historical evolution of this potato boycott. Because this notion of an injury to one is an injury to all is gone among us, because we have arrived. We enjoy freedom. And this freedom is hollow in a way. And to a point where we think that we can forsake and forgo this freedom. They don't think like that. They go to elections, they vote every elections without, even if they get a lower percentage, they don't give up. They don't. And they vote without fail. And yet, in less than 30 years, when we have been oppressed for 300 years, we think of changing. Because of a few blacks don't think straight when they come into power, even within the ranks of the liberation movement. And where are our African intellectuals to participate and shape the destiny of our country rather than to forsake it? What happens to the black middle strata? It vacillates. It begins to teach and tell our people that apartheid was better. They've never lived under apartheid, majority of them. We don't know anything about apartheid. Apartheid was a mess. It was a big mess. It gave us the potato boycott, which is what we're talking about here today. So I'm saying Black Forum is a very important organization that have got its job cut out, and it is important that we need to support it in terms of the programs that you embark upon. The concept is right, and we need to awaken our people from the slumber and of believing that they have arrived. And the system has actually transformed them to where they are today. And I think the book Capitalist Nigger speaks to us about black people and their attitude to success, about black people, their attitude to one another, black people and their attitude to wealth, black people to their attitude about upliftment and empowering each other. And I'm not talking race because we are a non-racial party. I'm essentially talking about what Thabo Mbeki was nearly killed in this country for saying there are two economies, if you remember. Until today, if you can utter that, even among the advanced intellectuals and academia in the corridors of these institutions, they'll tell you Mbeki was talking nonsense. And then he said there are two economies. There is one of rich and advanced, well-educated, and so on, and then there is the second one. And then he defined it underprivileged, less educated, and then the means of bringing this together are completely, widening. And then you ask yourself, in 2023, we're talking about deepening inequality. We saw it 10 years ago, and you think it can actually be overcome in 29 years. And they tell you that it can be. And that is what they say. In 29 years, you can overcome an inequality. Mbeki characterized it a long time ago. And he said that that is an Achilles heel of this nation. They said, no, that's not the problem. And then here we are as blacks, we believe that things could have changed even for better. Yes, coming into power and at the same time not doing other things that we're supposed to do, it comes with the responsibility of accountability, which is important. But at the end of the day, do not forget that and forsaken the revolution and the struggle simply by believing that things could have changed for better in less than 29 years. And I'm just putting it to you. And what has happened in this country is that we have now realized death of ideas and inertia. Intellectuals, academia have surrendered their thinking capacity to Twitter. So that's where the real debate is going on Twitter. This globalization has been good to me, I must say. But at the same time, it has not been to majority of us in terms of the national debate, because there's no more engagement. It's insults. We don't debate. When somebody starts to think and raise issues, that discussion, you won't find it in the corridors of newspapers and talk shows in this country. I addressed a press conference yesterday, and I spoke about the things we're talking about, BBBE. I spoke about electricity, of course, is the buzzword. Sputla is dancing nicely. So I spoke about in that particular press conference about a whole lot of other things. I talk about inflation, I talk about the cost of living is too high, it's a problem. I talk about Ukraine. Nobody's even interested to analyze this Ukraine war. All people I see on Twitter, they say, what is Ramaphosa doing there when he's failing Africa? But nobody writes and say, what connect us with that? And then African leaders, they go for the first time after so many, and I said that to my president, you know, you brought some hope, you guys in France, when you spoke for once with one voice. Whether that voice anyone can agree with it, I just liked it. When you got Macron changing, you know, from red to whatever, and then I look at him there, they thought that you were just coming to get and go back home. It was not nice, man. I'm sure he regretted it. But where was I bringing these niggas here and all of that? And then they were on point. It is as though they caucused, and they did not. So that was a great inspiration from our leaders. And then I said, no, there is a future here. So I'm saying this, you know, things that are happening in the national debate in our country, where we have all surrendered our thinking capacity and everything to Twitter. Elon Musk is improving a lot from 140 characters to at least try to. If you want to analyze and engage, it's Facebook, but Facebook, you realize you're dealing with another mass. So, so who's driving the national debate in the country? Who? Where we sit and engage and challenge each other outside insults and say, what are we talking about here? What are the issues we're talking about on any other matter that come to the fore in terms of South Africa? So I'm there, and then I present all these things. I'm certain that this press conference is going to be hot. And actually, myself, I must be prepared to represent the ANC here. Hey, I'm coming with big stuff here. The economy, what is really in our houses, where we walk, what we eat, how we feel. There's going to be fireworks here. We are live on television. Bafika bandibiza nge-branch ye-ANC yase Western Cape. Bandibuza nge-Youth League, end of the conference. Hey, SG, the conference of the Youth League, they say you did this and that. I said, these things I just talked to you about are not important. I mean, they are not of interest to you and the country which you must inform. You want South Africa to debate who's elected and how at the Youth League conference. How does that change the price of bread on Monday, that Colin is the president of the Youth League? It doesn't. And the cost of living and all of those things, where are we heading to? We get called to debates. When we get there, there's another one, I think today, Mahlengi attended News 24. They want me there to go and speak. News 24, big debate. On the topic is about coalitions. What's going to happen next year? Are you really going with Malema? Even this debate about coalitions is shallow. Shallow. Do you go with DA or with EFF if you drop below 50% in South Africa? That's the question you are asked, coalitions. It ends there. You are either with Malema or if you drop. That's the debate. So these discussions are not there. So we don't get called as politicians who represent political parties to be engaged on political discussions and to be judged fairly on the basis of what we present in this discussion about where are we taking, Mbalula, where are you taking the ANC to? Okay, we get called, we appreciate, we appreciate the airtime. Whether the airtime changes how you think about us, I don't know, but we do appreciate to be on TV from time to time. And when you get there, you've got to be asked. Now, I sit in an interview with a British person called Talk. It is really hard, Talk. And then I come to South Africa, I'm asked about the branch. And then I then realized what happened from that British man who was very harsh, but really taking me to task, that I must prepare, I must be ready. And then I come home, and then I ask, what went wrong? And all of that. So I'm saying, globalization has been good. We can connect with friends everywhere in the world. We can have smart gadgets. We can be good like that. But at the end of the day, it has also done us a disadvantage that we no longer read newspapers, we no longer write, we no longer engage in public debate. Because it's easy to wake up and answer a person in a paragraph or two on Twitter, and then they insult you back. And very few will be interested in what you say, and it's gone. And then all what they are interested in is the looks. And I realize the people who post their looks, they get a good audience. But when you come, you try to think, that thing doesn't happen. And everywhere else. And then this thing, Kutiwa, is working. And so on. So I was saying in this press conference yesterday, and when I criticize on behalf of the ANC the behavior of the police, they say it's ANC police. I say, no, police. Now I'm coming to the topic. The police cannot brutally act like that within the state. And then somebody, for political reasons, now try to define the party as separate from the state. And say, no, somebody who argues for that. He says that these things are combined. It's ANC. I say, how does a policeman who's trained as a cop become ANC by day and government by night, and a cop when he's doing an operation like that one of beating up people on the road? Can't be ANC. And the ANC can't be quiet about that. And I'm happy today that those police have been suspended, and they must account, and that IPIT will investigate and make a determination. So, South Africans, nobody was engaging with that point from trying to understand what is the role of VIP protection. And then everybody else says that, no, that must be done away with. It's not important. And then we're compared with other countries where there is no crime. You know, when somebody compared the president of Finland with the president of South Africa, there's no crime there. The president can afford to go to work by bicycle in Finland. And I don't know what is the population, it's very less. And the standard of living there is totally different from ours. So if you were to compare the president of South Africa with DRC, have you been to DRC? You can't move there. And then you say you must be like president of DRC who goes to work with a bicycle. You will not be in a position, the president of DRC or any African country. So we are compared as a developing nation with developed nation, that in this and that country, presidents are defined in this and that particular way. So in a democratic dispensation, we have set rules what how politicians and people must behave. And nobody's made a favor here. We all have got to account for our part. It is correct. Politicians sometimes think that they own the law. They don't exist within the law. They own the law. And if the law, sometimes, because of our political challenges, deals with Mbalula, who probably does things, you say it is politics. I can tell you that weaknesses that you have is what those who are opposed to you in political cycles exploit. They exploit them. That you've got these weaknesses and they work on them. But first and foremost, you are responsible for your life. It cannot be that every time you are in trouble, society and the party must babysit you for your problems. You must get out of those problems on your own. But the rules must be defined by fairness. And that's where the Black Forum comes in, and the AfriForum. The AfriForum wants to bring everything that is black and probably successful down. It's their agenda to prove the system is wrong in the hands of black people. But the Black Forum must say, we will defend our own, but not on the basis of incompetence and recklessness. We'll defend the best of the best in the system. So that Mbalula does not hide beyond incompetence in the name of blackness. And then begin to say that, no, I'm being victimized here because one day I want to become president. Because you should become president and want to be president out of your deeds. For one thing, 1, 2, 3, 4, we are about, here in this country we have defended things that we're not supposed to defend. And I don't want to mention them because I'm now Secretary General. So, we're not supposed to defend. And you intellectuals, you should say, and which some of you I applaud. When that moment came, you stood up and said, this not in my name. No, I can't go with this. Because nina ncengi mos nifundile. Thina sincenga ebusuku kude kuyovala ucenga umuntu webranch. Ukuthi awukampangikhetha ngwanisu. Yatsiba. Xa unondikhetha mntakwethu. Nina, you are professors. You need to lead the light. You must go and tell that thing to those people back where branching, not me. This is nonsense. This is nonsense, and I'm telling you, 1, 2, 3. It's incompetence. I will never put up with that in the name of blackness or the revolution. And that is what we want. So, when we move ourselves and talk about integrity and all of that, we need to understand what we're talking about. We are not talking about romanticizing incompetence. You know, I could see Dr. Namani Mo was introducing me. He had a difficulty because so he must finish not with minister, he must finish with Muno. Because our kids are no longer going to be led by people who don't have anything. And then still talk about apartheid. Apartheid by Shio, Isop, and so on. You must now finish by saying, where's the no minister? Because we must go to school as we get into these positions. Ulo aparapura pereka bakalauru politician. We apareka obalur lena ke petlile ntate ke tlatla ka ya ka usana. Ke tlo ema le lona mo ke fall. That's the society we are building, and it's not discriminatory. It is a society that is real. It is the blackness we celebrate. It's the non-racialism we build within the system that has disadvantaged us. And in that system, we want to succeed. And we lay the rules and the processes that enable us to succeed. So that there's no one who said, there shouldn't be. We must all be in a position to raise our hands and participate and compete fairly. And if ever people are coming at you unfairly and they are doing things at you, society and others will see. And Black Forum will be there to defend you. That our brother is being brought down here. Because we can see. And nani aningeni into engafunekanga ningene. Ningeni into enibonayo nani ukuthi no. Yeah, we have been invited to war. So the 1959 program happened because people were deprived. Young boys were taken. Young boys were being taken, undressed naked, and then taken to the farms to do this. Revolutionaries stood up and then exposed these atrocities, but it didn't add into that, didn't end at that point. It meant that they must stand up and revolt, because that was a form of an injustice. Obabu Gertin Sibande became the leaders of the time, organizing underground and did what they had to do. And that ushered in a period of defiance. Women came here to Pretoria, 1976, 1985, but this potato boycott from the farms, the downtrodden, have brought and ushered in our democracy, not just to think, as and when we shape the new dispensation and the kind of constitution we were writing at that time to enshrine, even in its Bill of Rights, the recognition of this thing called rights. That you cannot just trample upon people as if they don't have rights, and that is what actually happened. And the ANC championed that particular struggle. And this is what you are celebrating and commemorating here today. But you are commemorating this in the right place, the University of South Africa. And that is why I start with this long prelude. In summary, it says the struggle continues. And that is what I was talking about. And we must then be reminded of that and not romanticize the fact that we are black and all of that. Otherwise, we'll just become like civil rights organizations, which are very key, but in the United States of America, we are not that. We are dominant in this country. We are a majority. And we must never apologize for who we are, because we have to stand up. Apartheid did not, was not abolished because they wanted to. They had no choice. Apartheid was crumbling, and it was institutionalized. Its laws, and some of the laws are still there, and so on. The power of the people, and I was saying when Prof was speaking here, black power, because the power of the people was overwhelming into the system such that apartheid regime had to surrender. So there was no turning back. Everybody in the world was not with them, except America and the United Kingdom. Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan and them. But the rest of the world, the United Nations, was against them. So they had to surrender. Here at home, the defiance campaign, and our people now, every corner, every street were mobilized. And that is what is important. And our intellectuals, academia, themselves stood up and then said, no, enough, it is enough. We are counted on the side of the oppressed. So I'm saying that the repressive laws of apartheid were defeated by a people united. And I'm saying the story that inspires us today is that the struggle continues. We do have rights, and then we must protect worker rights and so on. And that is what is important for all of us in this country. So I'm just saying here that as I conclude, it is important to note as well the role of the journalist in the struggle for liberation, like Ruth First, who played a very important and a prominent part in terms of exposing the atrocities of apartheid, particularly in Bethal. So this commemoration and celebration is very important. This defiance campaign injected radicalism, and it was in this context of this ongoing mass struggle, militancy, and defiance that laid the foundation of the event where we're celebrating today the 64th commemoration of the Bethal 1959 potato boycott. We are commemorating one of the most successful boycotts led by the African National Congress. The ANC did not only lead alone, it was in alliance with the South African trade unions, SACTU, then with SAIC, Indian Congress, with colored people's organizations. This combined front of forces came to be called the Congress Alliance. So the 59 potato boycott was ignited by the brutality, like we said, and abuse of Bethel potato farmers. These acts of brutality and many others were the spark that was needed to initiate the 1959 potato boycott. One of the prominent leaders was Comrade Gertin Sibande, after whom one of the districts in Mpumalanga is named after. Played an important role in organizing and exposing this. And this led to the defiance campaign of women and so on, the Sharpeville massacre, the boycott of racial sport and so on, 1976, 1986. We are commemorating not only an event, but a historic milestone that influenced the direction of the struggle for liberation. We are celebrating the militancy and pushback by progressive forces who took head-on the systematic introduction of repressive legislation. The contribution of the 59 potato boycott cannot be underestimated. It planted a seed for laborers to fight for their rights and the establishment of a conducive working environment. The alliance led by the ANC championed the constitution that not only secured these rights, but guaranteed them, the Constitution of the Republic of South Africa. The basic conditions of employment, labor relations, and many other pieces of legislation have provided non-negotiable rights for workers since the dawn of democracy. Some of the workers' rights include the right to strike, the right to form trade unions, the right to fair labor practices. These rights are buttressed by appropriate resources and tools of trade. They ensure that workers must have safe working conditions and receive the agreed remuneration on agreed date, to mention a few. It is important to state that the labor movement led by COSATU, among others, has achieved a lot for the workers since the dawn of democracy. These hard-fought rights need to be protected and guarded at all material times. The ANC as a disciplined force of the left, the party as the vanguard of the working class, and COSATU as the voice of the workers, must continue to work together to protect and advance the gains of the workers. An injury to one is an injury to all. It is more amplified by the recent legislative amendments on the employment equity to ensure parity across race and gender. It is not easy when a revolution and struggle is simply hijacked like it is happening right now with all these parties like Solidarity and so on, and mobilized just on the race card. Here in Pretoria, white Afrikaners met and then spoke in their meeting I think at Voortrekkerhoogte in about 2 weeks ago. And then they said, what are we going to choose? They said we must push them below 45%. So if we push them below 45%, what must happen to others? And what will happen to the ANC and so on? They said, no, we must work to push them below 45%. They met on their own. And then in that meeting there, they raised all sorts of fears that they have about this country. You know, white people and Afrikaners, and I retweeted on my tweet one who said, I went to Australia for 11 years. I came back, and I've been living in this country for about 2-3 years. I will never go back to Australia ever again. It's a white person. But the point is that, I'm not quoting in verbatim, that's what it actually says. But if you go to my timeline, I'm not trying to say follow me on Twitter. I've got many followers, so now the story of this white person is the story that of 1994. White people in this country, they said in 1994 they were afraid of something called swart gevaar. And then they packed others, they bought tin fish, they dig holes and all of that, because they said the danger is coming. And then many of them, they packed their things, they went to Australia, to stay in Australia. They left South Africa. So what this guy is saying, agumnandi man in South Africa, as compared to where I went in Australia. So I saw white South Africans when I went to Australia and New Zealand with the Springboks. The stadium was full of South Africa. So I thought these South Africans are from South Africa, you know, and so on. Qantas airline. They said, no, they stay here. And then I met some of them in the pubs. Hey, they complained. We regret why we left. We were told that things are going to be bad. And that's it. Now, you see the African continent. If you go here, in the African continent, you go to the African continent, most of the cities and all of that, they have been revamped, construction and so on. The majority of people I've seen there are white Afrikaners working in these construction companies in the African continent. They are building cities, Equatorial Guinea, Nigeria, everywhere. In Dubai, most of the companies there come from South Africa, is white South Africans. So who are the people who have benefited a lot out of the new dispensation, including opening up markets in the African continent? It's not you. All what you've got here is a Tazcar, Toyota, and Limudende, and all of that. But the wealth and the benefit of this trade with Africa and the opening up of markets is another race. I travel here on Ethiopia Airlines, it's full. It's white. I don't see you in those airlines. And then when I go to the Arab Emirates, I go there. Arab Emirates, I go to Qatar. There's a World Cup there. The person who organized the security in that World Cup is a policeman called Price, who was responsible for the World Cup here in South Africa. Beautiful skills, nice skills and all of that, pulled together the World Cup. He pushed over there to organize that World Cup. And then when I ask them, they are expanding their airports, the best ATNS system, air traffic control. Who work in those air traffic control is white, young South Africans. Who has done that? The new dispensation. When I look at the numbers of people who are teaching mathematics and who are teaching English in the United Arab Emirates, numbers, they come from South Africa, majority is white South Africans. And then you've got the teachers here who know mathematics and all of that. They are not there. So who have benefited out of this new dispensation and the new democratic order that have opened relations with other countries? And then I ask ATNS, where are our young people? Why are they not here? So I didn't get the answers up until I came up with a plan that, look, I need these numbers to go up north in terms of these young people to gain experience and to be trained here in South Africa and to be dispatched there. I went to DRC. There are no airports there in DRC. It's a big country. I went throughout DRC. They say, we want AXA to come here. We want to build airports. I say, I will bring AXA here. I will also bring you South African young engineers who are black. Now I've left. I don't know whether Cindy will do that. But the Binational Commission must address that. So when you build airports in DRC, up to Goma and deep in the north of DRC, when we do that through AXA, our youth here must go and do that work. So we've got the best engineers in this country. And they build here in the African continent, they do all the work, a lot of work. And then when you go to Syria, there is war there going on. And then when you go to Ukraine, you know who are the people who are fighting there. Some of them come from South Africa, they are mercenaries from the old order. When you go to Iraq, you find them there. It's old special branch, they get paid exorbitant funds. And then some of them are working in the coast, deployed there, and then fighting as rebels and all of that on behalf of nations and getting a lot of money. As mercenaries, they come from here in South Africa. So majority of them, they are not black and African. So I'm saying, if you look at what this new dispensation and who has benefited economically out of it, let's produce a paper and a research on that. You will realize that we just got the cream on top. But the main thing of what came with this new dispensation, because South Africa was a closed territory. And when we opened up, and many other nations said, come to us, the people who are going there is still the old order. And we are not there. And then chigalana ngamatenda, sifuna 30%. And then we're just fighting for tenders. And then the tenders ilwangayo ayikuncane. The real stuff is out there. You know, I go to the Department of Transport, and then I look at shipping, and then I look at maritime. I don't find blacks there. I don't find blacks there. And then I look at the investment, which we changed now. Quiet, no tender, nothing, investments. An collab. But it's quite deep sea. Environmental Affairs Department, billions invested by the state, working together with the private sector there. Our people are not there. Or we are found to Silwela, Api tenders, as a Pitori, Tshwane, Joburg, and all of that, we are not there. The real economy, where it matters most, we are not there. So, I'm raising these issues. I'm the Secretary General of the ANC. And I'm saying, yes. And I'm saying, I'm not going to stand in front of you like Umheten. You know Umheten, kuti ufiwe ukhala agami kuthiwa yenga uthule ukhalisa abantwana kuthiwa awume kancane usokhalisa nabantwana because Umheten akwapha thembele khona. But the person with faith, noba ukholelwa ntoni na, you either believe these things can change because we've got brains, or I believe I've got faith to tickle corn. So I can't just cry endlessly. I've got hope that things will change for the better. So even ourselves, we can't just lament like we are not in charge. So things must change for the better. And you may think that change for the better in 30 years. They don't. They change for the better. For now, you have learned and what needs to happen. So unless then we are going to just become capitalist niggers. So our task and responsibility to remember the potato boycott and the Black Forum, we want to partner in this revolution of giving meaning to affirmative action, meaning to our people where they must go, and defending what is right that need to be defended. And that is what we need from Black Forum, and we partner. And then let's partner equally in terms of the generation of ideas and ensure that our people are not left in the periphery. This government is run by us. You know, people call me there, they say, they complain about the DTI. I simplify, I say, I call the Minister of DTI and then tell me what are the obstacles and what do we need to do. And then we will address those obstacles from Luthuli House. These universities, they are supposed to assist us with research and to be able to tell us, nina nicinga niyaqhubeka aniphambili. Niyaxoka, nicinga niphetha niphethanga. These are the universities that must assist us. There is another one that is opening next door that wants to change the status quo. This one must help us to change things, to come this direction. That one to change the present backward, we will defeat it if we get proper advice from these corridors. Rather than using these corridors to bring one another, one after the other down. This university must help us to change things. Because we might be sitting at Luthuli House and everywhere else. You think we've got capacity we don't have. That research capacity will come from here. To say, SG, we heard you the other day, you were talking about this. Here is the seminar, we are giving you this thing. Bring your ministers. I will bring you to the National Executive Committee. At least now we are no longer talking things in that NEC about step aside, because step aside is big one. We are going and ndikubeka one line. Yeah, ndikubeka one line. Mawuganga nje. Ndikubeka ecaleni, ndiyakuphumza. Nasemdlalweni iplayer ediniweyo ibekwe benchini. So I put you in the bench. So we don't interact with our intellectuals and institutions to help the transformation agenda. We have lost it. We have lost it, so to say, when there is an election, SASCO, Youth League, everybody, hey, intellectuals must come, you speak. And then we construct a manifesto, it's done. The manifesto is there. The issue is, let's work. There's nothing new to be done now. What we've got is enough to change this place. That is what is important. So we need you with your skills to get organized and assist the transformation agenda. If you don't assist it and you think the next person will, this thing is sinking. Our great-grandchildren and children will come and ask, what did you do about the country? They said, no, it fell in the hands of some Africans and darkies, and they messed it up. We are in charge now. Let's not cry like Singapore. Then potato boycott 1959 will not be in vain. We rely here for knowledge and power to transform this society. That's what is important. And then to inform our forward momentum and do away with petty jealousies and many things that are not going to. So that's how we're going to take AfriForum. AfriForum doesn't end with negativity of politics. They've got a clear agenda of maintaining the Afrikanerdom with whatever that they have. We don't have a clear agenda about how we change this country. For everybody to participate. And that is what we need to do as a nation and as organizations. And everyone who loves this country as a patriot to make it work. Thank you very much.